Welcome to the emotional journey behind where smiles were once brightest, is where the most tears are hidden. If eyes could speak, Michelle Dockery's gaze would tell a tale of tragedy wrapped in elegance. She was the soul of Downton Abbey, cold, proud, aristocratic in every glance. But in 2015, her world shattered when her fiancé John Deneen died from a rare cancer. She spiraled into depression, lost all sense of direction, and considered leaving acting forever. In 2023, she married Jasper Waller-Bridge, another bright name in the arts. Everyone thought it was a new beginning. But deep inside, Michelle still battled chronic anxiety, even suffering panic attacks during filming that sent her to the hospital. Fame doesn't guarantee joy. Have you ever felt the need to stay strong just because others expect you to? Dan Stevens. From Michelle's stare, we quietly slip into the eyes of Dan Stevens, who portrayed Matthew Crawley, her on-screen lover. His career soared after Downton, but sleepless nights haunted him. The weight of fame, the pressure to always be perfect, and a marriage nearly undone by scandalous whispers. He left Downton claiming it was for new challenges, but in truth, he wanted to escape himself, escape the image the world had cast upon him. Have you ever felt like you're living a life that others chose for you? And then came Jessica, the radiant, youthful Sybil Crawley. But in real life, her light dimmed the day she lost her first child in 2021, a blow that dragged her into depression. Chronic migraines followed, leading her to faint on set while the cameras were still rolling. Today, she's the mother of twin children. Her smile has returned, but a quiet sorrow lingers in her eyes. As women, we're often not allowed to be weak, and that's what makes Jessica's strength all the more remarkable. If you've ever fallen, remember that getting back up is a courage all its own. And finally, Lily James, the one who brought a refreshing breeze to Downton Abbey. But a scandal turned that breeze into a storm. Her rumored affair with Dominic West wasn't just shocking. It spiraled her into a serious mental breakdown. She was treated for social anxiety, hospitalized for panic attacks, and took months before facing a camera again. Sometimes the spotlight doesn't illuminate you, it burns you. What do you feel when you see a dazzling smile, but know it hides a raging storm within? From Michelle to Dan, from Jessica to Lily, they form a chain of emotions stifled by glamour. Downton Abbey was once a fairy tale of nobility, but every fairy tale has its darkness, where the most beautiful are often the most broken. Who do you think changed the most? And if you were in their place, would you choose the spotlight or peace? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget, Chapter 2 will echo the final whispers of those once applauded and quietly gone. Click the next video to continue this journey. Maggie Smith. She was the irreplaceable icon of Downton Abbey, Violet Crawley, a woman whose eyes were as sharp as her tongue. Maggie Smith made the world bow to her wit, pride, and unmatched presence. But few knew that while she made us laugh on screen, she was quietly battling cancer. Since 2007, Maggie underwent chemotherapy, silently, without complaint. She once said acting was her only painkiller. In 2020, the disease returned, this time weakening her deeply. She declined most roles, lived reclusively, and in 2024 passed away quietly at age 89. Maggie Smith wasn't just an actress. She was the last golden dust of a bygone era. And now, the curtain has closed. Do you still remember that sly smile and cutting gaze? Leave your farewell for our violet below. From Violet's sorrow, we move to a man who was once the steady pillar of the Crawley family, Hugh Bonneville as Robert Crawley. On screen, he was calm, dignified, a symbol of grace. But in real life, after 25 years of marriage, Hugh divorced quietly in 2023. Rumors swirled about an affair, but he never responded. After the separation, he suffered from severe arthritis, underwent hip surgery, and since then, accepted only mild roles. Every slow step he takes on screen now is no longer acting. Have you ever looked at a calm man and wondered, how much is he holding in? Don't just watch. Stay with us. Subscribe for more stories that truly touch the heart. If Violet was Downton's witty tongue, Anna, played by Joanne Froggatt, was the gentle heart of the downstairs. But even gentle hearts can shatter. Joanne divorced in 2020 after 8 years together. She fell into depression, underwent long-term therapy, and paused her career. She also suffers from chronic laryngitis, which weakened her voice, a devastating blow to any actor. In 2019, she faced a drawn-out legal battle with a fashion brand, draining her emotionally and financially. From the ever-smiling, gentle Anna, she is now quieter, more reserved. Have you noticed that change? And finally, we meet Laura Carmichael, Edith Crawley, who always lived in Mary's shadow. In real life, Laura too was often overlooked amid the spotlight of others. She once dated co-star Michael Fox, but the relationship ended quietly under media pressure. In 2020, Laura suddenly vanished from public events, rumored to be undergoing treatment for long-term anxiety. In 2022, she had a minor accident, a fractured wrist. But what drew more attention was her worn-out look upon return. Not everyone is meant to stand center stage, and sometimes the bravest thing is choosing the backstage. Have you ever felt not bright enough, but still deserving of a full life? From Maggie to Hugh, Joanne to Laura. 4 souls, 4 quiet battlefields. When the spotlight fades, only a sigh remains, unheard by the world. Downton Abbey gave us timeless moments, but real life has no script. And in that space, those who once defined grace now silently endure time's erosion. Who moved you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget, Chapter 3 will bring you into the hearts of men who never spoke, but whose hearts have been screaming for years. Click the next video to stay with us. Have you ever noticed that during the applause, women are remembered by the spotlight, while men, by their silence? They don't cry out loud, but they hurt the most. Downton Abbey had men like that. They didn't complain, but every step, every glance, carried a screaming past. Brendan Coyle portrayed John Bates, the quiet, loyal, and tormented man, both on screen and off. He was once the ideal of forgiveness and faithful love. But in real life, Brendan battled alcohol addiction for nearly 2 decades. In 2014, he was seen heavily intoxicated at an event in London. The image went viral and his reputation collapsed. Brendan then entered rehab and disappeared from the media. His brief marriage ended in 2005, Since then, he's lived alone, focused on family, and avoided the spotlight. In 2019, Brendan broke his wrist after falling on set, forcing him to take a long hiatus. He also suffers from arthritis since 2017, making physically demanding roles a painful ordeal. Have you ever seen a man smile and wondered how long it's been since that smile was real? If John Bates was a kind man living in tragedy, Thomas Barrow, portrayed by Robert James-Collier, was a soul rejected by society. Off-screen, Robert was once pushed to the edge by a gambling addiction. In 2016, he lost everything in one night at a Manchester casino. Afterward, he had to borrow money from friends and colleagues to repay debts. The story wasn't widely published, but those in the industry knew Robert once stood on the brink of losing it all. He's a single father, raising his child alone. No scandals, no boasting, but he often appears tired with a strained look in his eyes. He underwent therapy for anxiety and image crisis. Thomas Barrow tried to hide himself in fiction, and Robert lost himself in real life. Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try to live right, society still judges you relentlessly? Alan Leech, who portrayed Tom Branson, may have been the most optimistic man in Downton Abbey. But behind that smile was a series of injuries and haunting rumors. In 2020, Alan fell on set during an action scene, fracturing his ribs and taking a 6-month break from acting. He's suffered from chronic back pain since 2017. Every shoot required painkillers. In real life, Alan married Jessica Blair Herman and has 2 children, but their marriage was shaken by rumors of infidelity. He denied the claims, but has since appeared alone at public events. Branson rose from chauffeur to nobility, but Alan, once a rising star, now chooses smaller roles and stays away from the spotlight. Maybe in life, not everyone is meant to sit in the front row. Sometimes stepping away from the light is the only way to survive. Brendan, Robert, Alan, 3 men, 3 kinds of pain, and none of them ever truly spoke. In Downton Abbey, they were the anchors, but in real life, they needed anchoring more than ever. They didn't fall, they just chose to endure in silence. And perhaps that's what makes them unforgettable. Have you ever seen a silent man and wondered what's exploding inside? Don't miss the next chapter, where the women who once lit the fires of Downton now live in kitchens without laughter. To another corner of Downton Abbey, a place without grandeur or silk, but one that once warmed the hearts of millions, the kitchen of Downton. Sophie McShera, the young actress who played Daisy, once symbolized resilience and growth in Downton Abbey. But behind that innocent gaze was a soul that had fallen into deep depression. In 2018, she broke up with her longtime partner, a shock that made her withdraw from all public events for nearly a year. Soon after, Sophie was diagnosed with chronic migraines. She was hospitalized in 2020 due to a severe episode, forcing her to cancel numerous shoots. Her career stalled. Her face grew weary, and the smile that once defined Daisy slowly vanished from the red carpet. Have you ever seen a woman disappear in silence, only to realize, upon her return, how much she had endured? Don't just watch. Stay with us. Subscribe for more stories that truly touch the heart. From clumsy Daisy, we move to the revered head cook, Lesley Nicol, as Mrs. Patmore, a woman strong and spirited on screen, but burdened by shadows in real life. In 2020, Lesley's husband, a spiritual therapist, suffered a severe stroke. She halted all activity, left the stage, and cared for him through every meal, every sleepless night. For 2 years, she took no roles, and many thought she had retired. Not only that, Lesley also suffers from type 2 diabetes. Each day is a battle of medication, strict diets, and hospital visits due to complications. She once said, "I used to think playing a head cook was tough. Turns out, being the wife of a sick man is 100 times harder." Have you ever seen a woman who once inspired others, now walking silently into a hospital room, still wearing that same gentle smile? From the noisy kitchen, we arrive at the heart of the downstairs, housekeeper Mrs. Hughes, played by Phyllis Logan. In real life, Phyllis is the mother of an autistic son, a journey no spotlight could ever fully portray. When her son was diagnosed in 2000, Phyllis turned down many major projects, choosing family over fame. She joined autism support charities, contributing quietly without fanfare. In 2015, she began suffering from chronic back pain, undergoing ongoing therapy and spinal surgery in 2020. Still, she returned for some smaller roles, though her face no longer held the same youthful glow. Have you ever seen a woman who chose to be a mother before being an artist, and realized that was the greatest role of all? Sophie, Lesley, Phyllis, 3 women, 3 flames that once warmed Downton Abbey, now carrying silent burdens in empty kitchens. No more cameras, no more scripts, only sighs the audience never hears. Downton Abbey had its grandeur upstairs, but the real heart was always downstairs. And there, the quietest women bore the greatest sacrifices. Have you ever forgotten someone, only to realize they were the ones who kept the story alive? Leave a word of thanks for the women behind the light. And don't forget, the next chapter will reveal a different truth, when the villain is not evil, but the most deeply wounded. Click the next video to uncover it. Do you remember the characters who made you uncomfortable or even furious in Downton Abbey? But sometimes, the ones who provoke us most on screen are the ones carrying the deepest wounds in real life. Sarah O'Brien, the scheming, sharp-tongued maid, was one of the most disliked characters in Downton Abbey. But in real life, Siobhan Finneran, who portrayed her, lived a completely different story. She divorced in 2014 after 16 years of marriage to actor Mark Jordan. But the separation wasn't peaceful, worsened by accusations of abuse. She lost her Manchester home. Financial stress pushed Siobhan into crisis. In 2018, she developed severe arthritis, requiring constant medication. By 2021, she underwent knee surgery, and the recovery took almost a year. She nearly disappeared from the public eye. Did you hate Sarah O'Brien? But if you knew she once walked off set with swollen eyes after a devastating phone call, would you still hate her? Not every villain is evil. Sometimes they're just surviving the scars no one sees. On screen, Cora Crawley was often seen as distant and cold. But in real life, Elizabeth McGovern lived a life filled with things she had to hide in silence. She married director Simon Curtis in 1992, and they have 2 daughters. But in 2010, rumors of an affair with a male co-star surfaced. No proof was found, but it was enough to shake their marriage. Few know Elizabeth has suffered from chronic dermatitis since 2015, a condition that leaves her skin inflamed, itchy, and difficult to manage. Sometimes she had to cancel appearances due to facial swelling. She began avoiding the media and was labeled as aloof. Have you ever thought, that someone keeping their distance from you isn't cold, but just afraid you might see what they're trying to hide? Isobel Crawley, the strong-willed widow, was one of the most respected characters in Downton Abbey, but Penelope Wilton, who portrayed her, went through 2 heartbreaking divorces. She was married to Daniel Massey from 1975 to 1984, and then to legendary actor Ian Holm from 1991 to 2001. Both marriages ended in solitude, and she has lived alone since. In 2005, Penelope lost a major portion of her assets in a failed theater investment, forcing her to sell her London home. For years afterward, she lived simply and quietly. Since 2010, she has suffered from arthritis, undergoing hip surgery in 2018, and has since rarely taken leading roles. She never complained, but her gaze has grown more distant. Some women choose to stand alone not because they are strong, but because they've grown used to being left behind. Siobhan, Elizabeth, Penelope. 3 women once misunderstood, labeled as cold, distant, or even cruel. But behind those eyes are hearts quietly trying to mend from old wounds. We used to hate Sarah O'Brien, but if you knew she struggled through pain every time she stepped onto set, would you still hate her? Downton Abbey wasn't just heroes and villains. It was also imperfect people surviving unseen losses. Have you ever judged someone too quickly, forgetting to ask, "Are you okay?" Don't miss the final chapter, where all stories converge, when silence speaks louder than anything ever said. Click the next video to witness the powerful end. We've journeyed together through 5 chapters, from Michelle Dockery's piercing eyes to Maggie Smith's trembling hands, from the men who always smiled on the surface to the women who entered kitchens unnoticed. Downton Abbey, a world we once adored with obsession, but behind that nobility were real people. They once made us cry, but also wiped their own tears. They were scrutinized, judged, forgotten. She was Michelle, who lost her whole world in one morning. Dan Stevens, who tried to run from himself. Jessica Brown Findlay, who collapsed under the weight of motherhood's sorrow. Lily James, who learned to smile through a media storm. She was Maggie Smith, who left the stage without a final bow. Hugh Bonneville, calm yet tearful in silence after divorce. Joanne Froggatt, who lost her voice, but never her hope. Laura Carmichael, who vanished not from failure, but from fatigue. Brendan Coyle, who drank not to forget his role, but to forget himself. Robert James-Collier, who stood between debt and the world's suspicion. Alan Leech, whose ribs broke, but never his spirit. Sophie McShera, who once smiled the most, now weeps silently. Lesley Nicol, who put her career aside to care for her ill husband. Phyllis Logan, who carried 2 roles, housekeeper on screen, mother in life. Siobhan Finneran, once hated, never understood. Elizabeth McGovern, once doubted, never defended herself. Penelope Wilton, once strong, then chose silence for the rest of her days. And you, reading these lines, perhaps you never realized that behind every spotlight, every layer of makeup, every applause, there are scars, never spoken. If there's one lesson from all of this, it's this. Never judge someone's life by the role they play. Don't assume fame means they don't hurt. Don't think strength means they're not tired. And remember, sometimes silence is the loudest cry. Behind the spotlight are unseen sorrows. Behind every role lies a real soul. And sometimes, silence becomes the most powerful story ever told. Downton Abbey has ended, but the hearts inside it still beat on. Faintly, painfully, alone. You've walked with them through 6 chapters. Now share your thoughts. Who moved you the most? Who do you wish to apologize to for misunderstanding them? And if you have one last thing to say, write it below. They may never hear it, but maybe you'll feel lighter. Don't just watch. Stay with us. Subscribe for more stories that truly touch the heart.